Hey everyone, it's JT O'Donnell, and today I'm here with Robert Glazer. I'm really excited about this. So a little backstory, we are both part of the new newsletter program here on LinkedIn, which we're really excited about. And he reached out to me after he wrote this cool article on Forbes about the 5 things you shouldn't be doing on LinkedIn, which was really weird timing because I had just written an article about the 3 reasons why your connection request gets rejected by recruiters. And you might not see the connection there, but what we both landed on was the problem people are having when they're going and reaching out to people on LinkedIn, specifically recruiters, and also when they're going around the recruiters and going to things like the CEO or execs and the big mistakes that they're making when they're doing this. So we decided we would get on here together. We don't know if you're gonna like it or not, but we're gonna record this video and kind of hash it out because there's a lot of nuances to that we just kind of assume people know, but I don't think they do. So Robert, dive in.
Yeah, we started a whole email series of some debate and dialogue, and I think where we landed, we want to talk through is maybe a few different situations of how you would reach out or when you would reach out, and I think there's a big difference here whether you're talking about an external versus an internal recruiter and where you are in the process. So I've thought about this a lot in the last 24 hours, and I started it off with JT by saying, don't reach out to the CEO on LinkedIn and sort of bug them and about your process, your recruiting, your otherwise. And JT said, no, we encourage people to sort of advocate with leadership. And so we broke it down. And I mean, I'll start with a few situations where I think it makes sense and maybe give you a case study and one where it doesn't. So the first is, again, as the CEO, we're 150 people. There are a lot of things I'm just not involved with. I'm only involved with leadership teams. So when people have applied in the past for a job, the types of notes, if they're going to do it on LinkedIn, that have worked for me are pretty simple. Like, hey, I've seen your company. I love it. I applied now. I talked to X and I'm in the process. And I just want to let you know I'm really excited about the opportunity. Great note. I might forward that on to the recruiting team and say, like this person, right thing to do. Notes that frustrate me or seem kind of out of place would fall into, I think, the lazy or the circumvent bucket. So the other thing that's okay, actually, I'm the CEO, I always say to someone, if they want to write out and they had a bad experience, they had a problem, someone didn't get back to them, we take our standards really seriously. So I actually would respond to that too. That really almost never happens. That's not the case because I'll ask people, are you writing to me because something went wrong or you didn't hear from someone? That's not the case. So the 2 that kind of fall into the don't do this bucket, particularly know your audience of when to reach out to a CEO for a junior job or otherwise, are the, hey, Robert, saw some stuff about your company. I'm interested in an opportunity. Could we connect and talk about what jobs you might have available? Well, that tells me you haven't looked at our job page, you haven't followed any instructions, you haven't applied. Like, I'm not wasting my time doing that, and it just doesn't bode very well. I think the other for me, again, and this is with we have an in-house recruiting team, is when the person is in process and it's still going, or they've just applied, and then and we have a process. So they're not saying I haven't heard back or otherwise, but they seem to be then reaching out saying, hey, Robert, I applied for whatever and I interviewed with Stephanie and I'd love to get on the phone and talk to you about this role. Well, you're kind of in process with my team. You're doing this. I might not even know about the role. You look like you're trying to go around the team. And honestly, depending on the role, I might not even know about it. I don't have a lot to add and I trust them. You're not telling me you haven't heard back. You're not telling me you got rejected. You're just sort of like trying to bring me into a process that frankly my team won't be very happy about if I'm running the process. And if I forward that to them, they would probably be pretty annoyed that the candidate did that.
Yeah, so I love that you clarified that for me, because when you first emailed me and said, I don't like when people go around, I jumped in and said, but wait a minute, right. The whole applicant tracking system has its flaws, it's broken in the sense that hundreds of people apply that are qualified, and a lot of times they just get tossed before a human eye even sees it, right? Or recruiters have bias. A recruiter is evaluated on their job to deliver the exact criteria that was set by the hiring manager. So if they don't see it on your profile for some reason, They ditch you, and I get the job seekers, right? So they're frustrated. They're saying,
they're
but I
dealing with
know I'm a fit for this job, and they're rejecting me.
and they're dealing with outside recruiters too, who
Right,
might be
right.
handlers. So I think again, there's a difference between outside and inside. I just would also be really careful about what you reach out to a CEO about.
Agreed.
Not that I concern versus like the hiring manager or the leader, because particularly with CEOs who really empower their team, it can go off the wrong way. I do want to hear, and look, we have a whole system about when we get back to people in 24 hours, everyone gets heard from in a personal way. Like if there's something broken or we did something wrong, I'm happy to hear that as feedback. But again, don't come off as a complainer. This is where I would go with the, now I'm blanking on the name, How to Win Friends and Influence People. What's his name?
I'll think of it.
Yeah, famous book, but it said, give someone a great name to live up to. So if you're ever doing a customer service complaint, you'd say, look, I've read about your company, but I did not hear back, or I came in and interviewed. It just doesn't seem like what I heard about the company, right? That approach has a more of an impact on the person reading it than, again, if you're writing me a nasty bittergram, like I'm not going to get hired. Like,
Right.
That
Totally agree.
this is when people write a letter to a restaurant. Dale Carnegie was the name. But when people write a restaurant, like, this is the worst food I've ever had, I don't want to come back, and like, okay, great, versus, hey, all this happened, and I'd love to come back under better circumstances, and then you get you get the gift card. But yeah, sorry.
No, I totally agree with you. I think the point that I want to drive home, though, is there are ways to connect with people other than the recruiter in the organization. And I like your point about not necessarily going straight to the CEO, unless maybe you are exec level, right? So if you're at the executive level, it would make sense because you would be part of that hiring decision. But, you could look for peers. You could look for people that just got hired in the organization, reach out to them, and like you said, not ask for a job, but maybe, hey, can you give me some perspective? What's the one reason you decided to join? What's your favorite part about it? You landed a job. What's your one piece of advice for people trying to earn an interview? Maybe seek people's perspective as opposed to their help in the process.
Yeah, and be clear what you're asking for in their time or their call, or like, even an email response might be helpful. Again, asking for a junior role, asking the CEO to get off on the phone, it just, we consider emotional intelligence like the most important skill in our hiring process. So when you do something that doesn't show good emotional intelligence in the process, I just don't think it helps you. But right, it should be level appropriate. So two other cases. So we actually have someone on our exec team who was rejected initially by our in-house recruiter because the background was not a fit. Reached out. This is a role where objection handling would be part of it. Reached out to me and wrote a note and said, I got this rejection. I think I've been at this role for 2 years. I think they were kind of missing what I had done the 10 years before. A lot of this stuff is a fit. Just wrote it in a really smart, nice, and emotionally intelligent way. Again, I took that, forwarded to my recruiter. I said, can you do me a favor? Can you take another look at this person? I think what they're saying makes sense. And that person's now part of our exec team. So there is an example where, again, wrote the email carefully, writing to me, knowing that this person is on the exec team is the appropriate context in that. I really liked what you said before about reaching out to a peer or just love some advice. What's important to you? Even sometimes, not asking about the job but just showing some thoughtfulness in the process. I think that's that was a case where it really worked out for us.
And that's the piece that I was trying to drive home in the article I wrote, which is people seem to think that because we have this ability to be on LinkedIn and do connection requests, we can cut right to the chase.
Yeah.
And I said, you would never walk into a business networking event, run up to you and say, Robert, I see you got a job post and I applied. What gives? It's just, we would get to know someone first. We would connect. We'd, earn some trust and respect before we would ask for those things. But I feel like people think that this is a shortcut. And it isn't. It isn't a shortcut to relationship building. It's just a new way to build relationships, which kind of leads back to my other piece that a lot of times people don't realize how important it is to be figuring out where you want to work and building those relationships with people that work there. So you're not, struggling to find someone to talk to when you see the right opportunity posted there. Does that make sense?
Totally. And the other thing I'll tell you is that, great companies, the leaders are coached by their coaches to be building their bench. So there's nothing that smells worse than desperation or immediacy when people are reaching out. But I've had people also reach out. Hey, I'm in the market I keep seeing your company. I'm not looking for anything now, but I think we should connect. Any good exec is actually coached to be having these coffees and build their bench. And by the way, this is like the adage in venture capital. People say, if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money, right? The best way to get a job may be to not get a job and say, hey, you look like a company that should be on my radar. Can we get coffee? Because everyone on my team is actually tasked with building their bench. And so they're supposed to have these coffees and connect with people and whatever. But even if we don't have a job currently, so that also just lowers the threshold you're asking for. But I can tell you this week, someone said to me, forwarded me, now this is a totally separate pet peeve, but people are constantly introducing me to people, seeing if I can help find them like a job or what companies are good or who's hiring. And I'm like, I am not focused. I haven't looked at a job board in 15 years. Like, do your own research and then come to me because you want an introduction. I don't know who's hiring for VP of finance jobs, or who's good to work for. Again, go on Glassdoor. This ties into this, but don't ask people to do work that you haven't been willing to do. But in this email, the person said, oh, they're looking for a job immediately. And could you, do you have any ideas? And it was a very senior person, but I feel like that it just feels a little desperate. If that person had said, this person's thinking about what to do, could be a good person to have on your radar, much more interested in meeting them than sort of they are just looking to get employed tomorrow. It just makes me less likely to want to spend time because I don't have anything for them, nor am I a recruiter in my spare hours.
I love that. I think my favorite point you made in there was the idea of doing your homework and saying, hey, these are the 3 companies I'd really love to work for. I see, Bill here, Mary here, Fred here. Would you be open to introducing me? That I can execute on as a busy executive. I can do that, right? I can pull the email, make the introduction, move on. But you want me to stop, ponder, go through, spend hours, again, like you said, doing your job. We're always harping on people that you're a business of one. Yeah. You're a brand, you're a business of one. You need to do your marketing. You need to know your marketing strategy. You need to know your target demographic. You've got to do your homework. And I think that's what you're really driving home, that you can't get people to help you if you haven't done the important basics.
Yeah, if I'm making a judgment on a person who's been introduced, and there's 2 things. Hey, Bob, here's my friend JT. She was looking and saw that you were connected to, Steve at this job and worked with him in marketing. She has a great background for this. Wrote up a awesome custom paragraph, pop and send, and great. Also shows emotional intelligence. But someone introduced me to JT, and JT follows up and says, I get these all the time. Hey, do you know who are good companies to work for? Do you know of any jobs in literally chief financial officer and whatever? I'm like, what do you want me to do? Go on Glassdoor and LinkedIn? I don't even know this person. It's not like it's a friend. I can't tell you how poor of a reflection that makes. And when I respond to everyone, I use a lot of templates. I say, hey, Mary, thanks for the intro to JT. Just so you know, I'm knee deep in my business. I don't really know who's hiring or whatever. I do have a ton of connections on LinkedIn. If you want to go through my network and connect and find a job or an opportunity you think is a good fit, give me an intro paragraph. I am happy to make some warm introductions to you. Would you care to guess how many people out of the 200 that I have offered that to have ever done that? Maybe 1, not even 1, a half. And sometimes they give me a terrible paragraph about themselves where then I'm editing it. And it's you want me to refer you? This is not a great first impression.
And that takes us to the part of all this technology has made people lazy in their job search, and people get defensive about that, but they don't know they're being lazy because all this tech has been here. So they just say, well, I applied online. Why don't I have a job? And you're pointing out great points. There's a strategy behind job search. These technologies are great, but you have to use them very strategically, which I think we're trying to outline here today, which is fantastic. I hope people are finding this useful, but you have to really put skin in the game. You've got to build a strategy, execute, take that initiative, do that work, and just not seeing people do enough of it.
I wanted to have two very well-known people on my podcast who are connected to a person that is coming up on my podcast yesterday. And I said to him, would you mind making those introductions? And he said, and I said, do you like making those introductions? Would you like to make them? Because I always don't know how people want to do it authentic, or it'd be helpful if I provided you copy. He said, why don't you provide me something? Wrote back in the email, thank you so much for doing this. Here's paragraph 1, totally customized with the name, the signature. Second one, I changed up. I put episodes that they have been on so he can cut and copy. Like, do the work before you ask other people to help you. It really, it just amazes me. It's not a good look. If you're going to provide someone a paragraph of yourself, that should be the best possible version. It should be customized. Like, I've literally edited them over the years, being like, you can't send this about yourself. I mean, it's got typos in it. It's a mess. Like, you haven't talked about the job. As I said before, I like an open invitation. I mean, I must be connected to over 1,000 CEOs on Facebook, and a lot of them I'm sorry, on LinkedIn, I know. And I've offered people direct introductions, but all they have to go on LinkedIn and find the job and find the thing and do that, and then they don't do the work. So you and I are both big believers in this, and we see it with all the AI sales bots. Like, do 5 things really well rather than 200 versions with a template and not well, and you will get a better outcome from it.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So I think this is a perfect way to sum it up. Hopefully what I'm taking away from today's session is do the work, right? Don't spray and pray. That's what we call it, right? Yeah. Do it really well. Put the time and energy in, 5 well-crafted connection requests. Our introductions are going to get far better results than you just, massively sending out, hey, will you help me, and getting no response, and then being frustrated. No one's responding to me. My network's not helping me. You've got to serve your network. You've got to do the work.
If you're leaning on your network, it should be after you've invested in your network. You should be helping other people as much as you can. No one loves the feeling of someone who clearly wants to catch up with everyone because now they need a job, right? The person who's only catching up when they need a job, it just doesn't. That's not networking. That's not giving to your network. Also, because you mentioned this, don't bait and switch on LinkedIn. I'm sure you've seen this with the salespeople now. Hey, JT, I saw your name. You look like someone in the Boston scene, want to catch up with, blah, blah, blah. And you say, oh, they wrote a custom thing, because custom intros help with acceptance. You accept it 2 seconds later. Do you need like IT tech services? It just so when you reach out, don't follow up like let them accept it, follow up a couple days later, say something thoughtful. Just don't jump on it right when they accept it and then make your pitch and have it be different than what you wrote in the intro. I think the bait and switch is just, my visceral reaction is like, oh, I took a chance on this person and they're doing the same thing as everyone else.
I know, I get it too. It's so frustrating. All right, I love this. So folks, tell us what you think. It's the first time we've ever done this together. In the comments below, did you like it? Would you like to see it again? Also comment, tell us what was the most helpful tip today. Did something resonate with you? We'd love that as well. And then some questions. If you've got questions for us that you'd like to maybe see us answer, put those in there too. And I don't know, Robert, would you do this again? I would.
Let's do it again. We can make it a weekly series, the do's and don'ts.
Yeah, right.